Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Blue Jay Center podcast presented by the Sick Podcast Network. I'm back. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
I'm back. I took about 2 weeks off, whatever it was, whatever the time frame was. Hoping maybe by the time I got back, things would have changed. We're in a bit of a soft schedule, and nothing has actually changed with the Toronto Blue Jays. We're 24-29, 5 games below 500. We're 5 games back of a wild card spot. We'll get into that a little bit later. And we're off the heels of losing 3 or 4 against the Detroit Tigers. Now, besides the fact that that is completely Rob's fault, who's joining me today, obviously, and James Price. Rob has, I think, a 4-12 record in Detroit. He goes every year. That's not going to stop. So that's on him. But regardless, nothing's changed about this Jays team in terms of big picture. There's a couple, minor things that have changed here and there in the positive direction, which hopefully leads us to positive regression in terms of the record. But the Jays are not good right now at all. So James Price, Robin Tellman joining me here today. Guys, let's get into the Tigers series. James.
My first mistake was going with Rob. That's the disaster in itself. But yeah, boy, that was awful, guys. I mean, we only got to see the 2 games, and they were both as painful as can be. The 2-1 loss, I mean, snooze fest at its finest. Brios gives up a 2-run shot in the first, and that's all they need. And then whatever the hell that thing was on Sunday.
Debacle.
I mean, I'm still reeling. I don't care that we beat the White Sox today. I could give a crap. That was, I think, painful. That's even an understatement. Like, that was a gut punch at its finest. The first 2 games are a blur to me right now. Obviously, winning one, 9-1, it feels like years ago.
Yeah.
It just seems like everything this team is trying to do, something has to go wrong. The only guys that you trust, I mean, consistently, Yusei Kikuchi's been great. It is a bad start. And consistently, Jimmy Garcia has been elite. Yeah. He's a bad start. He is bad at it. Yeah. Romano in an unsafe situation. I mean, who could have guessed that one? And a 3-2 getting beat by your second best pitch. Yeah, I don't know. It was a complete debacle. In all which ways, and it's just so unfortunate because I don't want to say it could have been a momentum swing because there have been so many games this year that could have been momentum swings, but it would have done nothing but positive vibes, at least for that game, and you would have at least split the series. And if you won today, it's 2 in a row. You're vibing a little bit more. That 10-3 record possibly is the thing. Rob and I talked about that like a couple times. No. Can't happen now. And it's like you feel like you have to sweep the White Sox and the Pirates. And for this team, it's going to be tough.
I haven't swept anyone all year. As you already alluded to, you're correct. 4-12, my record as I left Comerica Park. I've been going to Jays Tigers. Let me tell you something, guys. I've been going to Jays Tigers games at Comerica pretty much since 2015 is the first time I've gone. I've seen good Jays teams go into there and bad Tigers teams and the Blue Jays just lose. And
the last 2 years.
There's 2 types of losses. I noticed there's 2 types of losses. There's the Jays fall behind a ton early, and the offense is just anemic. The Tigers blow them out. Or 2, the Blue Jays jump out ahead, and they end up blowing and getting walked off. And just for me today, they did both. Yesterday, they did both. They get up to an awful start. You feel like no real chance of them coming back, and they have this monster inning where Dalton Varsho goes up and hits the home run. The vibes are just immaculate, and here you are. You have this bullpen's been as shaky as can be, but who cares? You have Jimmy Garcia in the 8th and Jordan Romano in the 9th. You feel pretty good about that, and of course, against an anemic Tigers lineup, by the way, you allow 14 runs when pitching is the reason why we should all be positive about this team. It was awful, and yeah, we all know how it ended. I told Pricey right before. I think, Pricey, you asked me right in our seats, right? Yeah. We're right there, right by the first base side, not too far away from where the disaster struck. And you asked me, do you go fastball 3-2? And I said, you can't get beat by your best stuff. Get beat by your best pitch. And of course, we all know Jordan Romano, slider happy, gives up the home run. And that's all she wrote. But my realization was, folks, is that I've seen a ton of walk-offs at Comerica Park by the Tigers. And this one just didn't feel as painful. And honestly, do you want to know why? I think it's because you just
I
had
don't
the
know what you were
realization.
smoking, buddy, but I was
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we were watching the same game.
out.
The realization is that they got walked off, but and it doesn't really matter because this team's just not it. This
Yeah.
like whether they win this game or not, this team's just not good enough. Like we've
Yep.
seen enough evidence. We've tried to be positive and say, hey, you know what? At the very least, beat up on the crappy teams and make this interesting. But I think the reality is that you've squeezed all the juice out of the orange of this score. I mean, maybe I actually want to touch on this later about the actual core because I do have some interesting thoughts I want to share with you guys. But I think at the very least, this 2024 version is done.
You
You know, like,
mentioned
let's be honest. There's enough evidence. They're far enough back. Yeah, you can get a couple wins against the White Sox. We've all seen what a playoff team looks like. We haven't seen World
Right.
Series teams that can make a deep run. We know what a good team looks like. This ain't it. This is not a playoff team. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Yep. So that segues perfectly to one of the topics I wanted to talk about today, which might actually answer a few of our questions. When is it too late? And Rob, you're currently kind of suggesting that we've hit there. It's past. It's already existed. This team isn't good enough, and it's too late for them to be good enough. Obviously, mathematically, it isn't too late for them to be good enough.
Yes, yeah.
But this team, from what we saw through however many games total up so far through the season, it isn't good enough, and we know that for a fact. There's enough of a sample where we know that this team will not be able to do anything positive unless a complete turnaround happens. They have a 16% chance, according to Fangraphs, of making the postseason. To put that in perspective, yes, 2 years ago, both the Guardians and the Mariners at this point, the exact same date in 2022, had less than a 10% chance of making the playoffs, according to Fangraphs, and they both made it. One of them actually won the division, Cleveland, that year. So they both, obviously the Jays, yes, could have a turnaround that wouldn't even need to be better than those guys' turnaround. You just have to be partially almost as good as them, and you'd be able to do it. But there's just not enough, I think, firepower. I don't even know if there's enough upside in some of these guys for that to happen. A lot of these guys having career lows outside of, and that maybe the one thing that did change in positive regression in the last 2 weeks since last time I came on here was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's finally in a position where the raw numbers look like 2022 Vlad. 820 OPS, 5 home runs. That's a lot less than we would like out of him, that we're expecting out of him. Up there in RBIs, up there in OBP, almost a 400 OBP, batting 300. Like, that is a 2022 version of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So if there's anything that is pointing in the right direction, it is him. But yeah, I'm with you. Because everything else I have to offer for today, yeah, it looks like we've seen enough. And the sample has shown me that this team, we can give up faith in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's not it for me. Sorry, Rob, if you don't mind me jumping in here, pal.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward for me. We've seen this team. They can't build on anything. There's no momentum or anything. And a prime example is today's game. They had 6 hits. But they scored 5 runs. You know why? The long ball. Yeah. And this team is look. You're not going to be playing the White Sox every day. So this is more of a team of string 3 or 4 hits together to score 2 runs, and you're just not going to be able to do that very often. A prime example is we lost 2 or 3 to the Baltimore Orioles. Every single run they scored, I believe, in that series was off of the home run, and it's a game breaker. And this team just does not have that. And the only way this team gets back to 500 by the end of this, again, Rob mentioned winnable stretch, but again, against crappy teams, we are part of that crappy team mold. Right. But anyways, you have to go perfect now the rest of the way to even go to even be at 500 heading out of that. And it's the getting out of that part that I think it's over. You're done. You got
on the other side is a bloodbath schedule.
Exactly. Right. Well, I was going to say this. The A series, this is one of my questions coming up. The A series, that for me is the point of definitive conclusions. If you aren't in the next, I think it's 8 games, 9 games, or no, I think it's 10 games. In the next 10 games, if you did not win more games than you lost in that 10-game sample, then you know. You played the White Sox for 2 more, you played the Orioles for 4, you played the Pirates for 3, and you played the Oakland Athletics for 3. So I think it's above 10 games. But anyways, regardless, in that stretch, if you don't win more games than you lose in that stretch, you can make a conclusion on your team in June.
I think it's even worse than that. I think if you're not 500 leaving Oakland, I mean, you're pretty much done.
So you're saying, so okay, so you're
You gotta
putting
be
you're putting a
500.
number on it. So we need to be 5 games better
Yes.
than we are right now.
The stretch after Oakland is Milwaukee, Guardians, Red Sox, Guardians, Red Sox, Yankees, Astros, Mariners.
Yeah.
Right after that.
Yeah.
If you're not 500, I
Good
mean,
luck.
Round shot.
Good luck,
with that one.
Yeah,
That's why you had to beat up on these, again, bad teams to get your record back to being respectability. Because, hey, if you win a series here, win a series there against these good teams, great. But now winning series is not good enough. And it ain't going to be easy against any of these guys. So it's going to be a bloodbath. And those Tigers games just kind of was the gut punch for me. That's kind of all I needed to see. It really was.
So 9-3. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's 12 games. You need to go 9-3.
Yep.
Right. And you can put all these, like, whatever. We know it's not going to happen. Like, let's be honest.
Right.
We know that this team's just not, they're just not capable. There's not enough firepower. And look, obviously, yes, mathematically, it's not over yet. Like, it's theoretically possible, but eventually, like you throw out the Oakland date. I think that there's nothing that this team can materially do. Like, there's no moves to be made necessarily. But what I will say in terms of moves to be made, we'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about Yusei Kikuchi, Jimmy Garcia, whatever. 2 moves that I think they should try to make sooner rather than later. And I don't mean make tomorrow. You can give it a couple weeks until you're really confirmed that you're really out of it. I'm calling 2 teams. I'm calling LA. I'm calling Tampa Bay. And I'm telling them, you know what, guys? We got 2 guys on our team. Franchise favorites for you guys. Justin Turner, Kevin Kiermaier. They're 2 guys who gave a ton for this organization. Unfortunately, we're just not in a position right now to do it anymore. They're expiring contracts. We're going to eat all the money. It's a sunk cost. Nothing we can do about it. It doesn't affect our books. Give us a 25-year-old future KBO star just to facilitate the trade and make it work. Make it work. So we got to clear up 2 roster spots for the Buffalo guys.
Right.
Yep.
I think that's what they should do. I think that's what they should call up those teams. Justin Turner back to the Dodgers. You can be the 26th guy. Kevin Kiermaier. 2 places where you'll send them somewhere where they'll be comfortable. They're obviously very familiar with the area. Teams that actually have a legitimate shot, and just clear up some roster spots. Let's see the young kids go, man. This season's done.
Absolutely.
Let's see what you can actually get from your AAA guys, and see what, if any of them, if even one of them can be a legitimate part of your roster crunch next season and maximize 2025. And I want to ask you guys a Vlad question later on.
Yeah.
We don't have to get to it right now, but I think that's the next step for this team. That's the first 2 moves they should make, in my opinion.
I'm with you. I can see that. They're easy moves or small moves. It's more or less goodbye the player. It's not really about with the return, really.
Yeah, I think Tampa would happily take a Kevin Kiermaier back today. I don't think LA is going to take Turner back. That roster does have 26 guys that they have no problem employing.
Sure.
I don't think Turner fits into that mold, but I do think that there is some team out there that would take on Turner if we eat the contract, which leads us to the next thing. Sellers or playoffs. We've already alluded to it. We're sellers. And by all accounts, we're sellers. It would take a drastic turnaround for this team to be anything but that. And I want to mention a couple things. If you listen to the most recent At the Letters podcast, you'll hear a very interesting thing that I was not expecting, actually. So they are obviously suggesting the same stuff that we are, that you are all likelihood going to be sellers this year. That involves all the expiring contracts. But the one thing that we have been talking about on this podcast that they actually don't believe, Ben Nicholson, Smith, and Arnswelly, they do not believe that a selling version of this team this year involves a trade of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bichette. In fact, they took it a step further and said, not only will they not trade those 2 guys in the offseason, in all likelihood, they will try to compete in 2025 with those 2 guys on the roster.
So this actually segues perfectly to my question, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's a very strong question. We talked ad nauseum. Vlad, will he ever be the 2021 version of that guy? He'll never be the guy that you can give a 6 he's gonna be a 6-7 win player. You can't give him a $200 million contract. But however, on the same side of the coin, if you look at Vlad's numbers today, after the 4-hit game yesterday, and this is before today's game against Chicago, 138 OPS plus. I mean, it's on the foundation of singles and walks, like we mentioned, but obviously relative to league average, he's hit enough singles and walks where it's really mattered. His OPS is over 1,000 in May. And now the flip side of the coin, we talk about 2021 being the outlier. Well, here's my question, folks. If you look at the last 4 seasons, maybe last season was the outlier. Maybe Vlad, you look at all the seasons that he's had. He's never had a season other than last year in the last 4 below a OPS plus of less than 133. So like my question is like obviously at this point we don't have enough evidence to say Vlad's going to be a 160 OPS plus guy again like he was in his MVP year.
Yeah.
But I think we do have enough evidence to suggest I'm pretty confident Vlad could be a 135 OPS plus guy moving forward. I think we have enough data to suggest we're pretty confident in that. You look at his OPS plus since 2021, it's 139. That counts the outlier season 21. That counts last season. So at the very least, maybe Vlad is not the guy you give a $200 million contract to, but why can't you pay him as the player he is? A 4-win player, a 135 OPS plus guy.
Here's the issue. We've never questioned paying Vladdy his current statistical market value. That's never been a question. His current statistical market value is very doable for Rogers and would be very plausible for Rogers to sign him at that deal. There's going to be teams that have no problem offering him the potential
that
contract.
are going to give him, right. But my whole point is that have they negotiated that? Have they had any negotiations? All I hear is that they were very far off on the numbers. And my question is
right, and I think that's because Vladdy's going off of potential. Whereas
and that also, guys, doesn't help that it's very evident he went to arbitration, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't come to a number then. What makes us think they're going to come to a number on like a 10, 12-year contract, whatever the hell they would end up being?
Yeah. I think that's the answer. Vladdy wants to get paid what he thinks he will become, and there's teams that are he knows that there's teams that are more than willing to do that, and there's us who are like, we've never handed out a contract like that, and we don't think that you're the guy to hand it to.
The contract that size, I get it, but at the same time, the way Vlad's you kind of put those numbers in perspective. I mean, a 135 OPS plus guy, that's very valuable. That's a very good player. It's not obviously not the generational transcendently great hitter that we thought Vlad was going to be, but that's still hard to find, man. It is hard to find a 135.
No, you're asking us, would we pay a 135 OPS plus guy what he is worth? Yes. The answer is yes. Of course we would. No questions asked. Wouldn't think otherwise.
It's just the thing is you just, and I know obviously maybe it's the tone has kind of changed a bit now because Vlad's been red hot, factually, we're seeing material evidence of him being good, but it seemed like the fan base was kind of out on Vlad a month ago. It seemed like they were fine, just let's get rid of him and start over with the core. But now it's, I don't know if you get rid of the core. I think you try to retain the Bo and Vlad and just rebuild around them. You know what I mean?
I think that's what Rogers. I think that's my problem is that, and same thing. Ben Nicholson Smith, Arns Vaughn said the same thing. They said Rogers is trying to do that. Anybody that thinks Rogers isn't trying to re-sign Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. don't understand how baseball works. Rogers has been actively trying to get these guys into long-term deals. They managed to get Bo to a point where he would avoid arbitration, thankfully, and they haven't been able to get Vlad to that point, which is the whole reason why I think the fan base and ourselves as diehard fans who even understand the business side of things, we know that worries us. If you can't come to terms between $1 and $2 million in arbitration in 1 year, then how do we believe you're going to come to terms on an 8-year deal worth $200 million? It's an unlikely scenario. So back to I think the bigger conversation here, is it not shocking to you that two Blue Jays insiders are under the impression that despite a probable rebuild year this year, that's only to retool for another competitive outlook on 2025? We all were under the impression that if you were to sell this year, that's it. You've admitted that the core is done, and in the offseason, you explore the Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. trades for serious because you have, 20 teams that are going to take a look at them because there's 20 teams that would be willing to re-sign them to long-term deals. Is that not shocking to you as it is to me, Rob?
Not really, honestly, and a big part of it, and I know it's it kind of seems funny, but it's a stadium. I mean, you invested so much money in the stadium. The last thing you want to do is just put your hands up and admit that, there's no reason to come to the park. It's a ghost town. So I understand why.
That's crazy.
They have a lens towards being competitive. At the same time, like we mentioned, you have two good players who you don't have under contract after next season, and if at this point, we don't exactly know how those conversations went. All we hear is stuff from insiders. We all know how those work. A lot of times they're leverage plays either from the team side or from the player side. But at the end of the day, one thing that I know for sure is that you can't afford to lose either of these guys for nothing.
No.
Right.
Whether that's, and at the same time, the two playoff runs versus the one, that makes sense. I agree that you hypothetically you would get more value, but I think with players like Bo and Vlad, considering how young they are at their age, even if you're a team that's not contending, as going into 2025 and you just want to give us someone give them the Javi Baez contract, not a contending team, but you have a legitimately a player you can put on as like a poster. Bo and Vlad, I think they move the needle in that regard. So right now at the deadline, no one like you have a lot of teams that are sellers not going to make a move. I think in the offseason, it's worth to wait at least until this offseason where even the teams that aren't contending per se feel like they have a chance, and that puts them in the pool among teams that you can negotiate with and come together with the trade. So I do agree. I don't think that they should, regardless of what happens, trade Bo or
Right.
Vlad in season this year. I
Yeah.
think that the opportunity cost is high enough where you can wait until the offseason next year. But at the same time, like the question is, will they try to contend? Will they try to like make moves to build around them?
No.
I think that all depends on how close you are on
Yeah.
an extension, because like I said, you can't go into next year saying you're going to contend and then the team does what they're doing this year again,
Right.
and all of a sudden you're on the verge of losing these guys for nothing. That
Right.
cannot happen. That is a nightmare scenario.
Right, which
So-
is like, but like,
Yeah.
my problem is like, we don't have enough evidence pointing in the other direction. We don't have enough evidence suggesting that Rodgers is going to, sell off expiring contracts this year to, increase the prospect pool, maybe get a couple guys that are on the fringe of MLB ready, and
Well,
then
they
come
should do
into
that.
20.
They have to do that.
They will
That's
do that,
no
and
brainer.
they probably will do that. But my problem is we have no expectations. We have no reason to believe that then come 2025 that this team is going to manage to sign a bunch of players and trade for a bunch of guys that actually puts a competitive roster out there for 2025. Like, I have a feeling that if we sell off this year and we're going to keep Vlad and Bo, we're not going to sell them in the offseason like, in my opinion, that we should, the roster is going to look a lot like it did this year. Coming into the year,
No,
it's going to be a lot of
you're right.
guys on these level deals on the hope that they still have something left in the gas tank for one more year. And to me, that is such a stupid business decision.
I think if you are going to go into this offseason, and by the way, the offseason, we're a long ways away from the offseason. I don't want to get too much into it, but
Yeah.
I think if you're going to go into this offseason with an angle towards building a roster that's going to be significantly better than this one, it has to come with, at the very least, significant progress on an extension for both guys.
Right.
If not, and maybe it's just one. Maybe just one you trade the other. I don't know.
Right.
But regardless, I think you can't go into the 2025 season as the status quo. You either have to have one of them extended or traded. It can't be either or. It cannot
Right.
be either or.
No, and
James.
And look, you can still be competitive by trading one and signing the other. You can build around Bo or build around Vlad, whatever,
Yeah.
whoever you think is going to raise the floor of your organization or
yeah,
selling to.
I mean, without a doubt. Look, for anybody thinking that Bo and Vladdy are getting traded at the deadline, it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening. You know why? Rodgers and Mark Shapiro are telling Ross Atkins, "Hey, pal, you're not the guy that's going to make these moves. If we don't make the playoffs, which I think we all kind of are on the same spot of
Right.
that, Ross ain't. He's done. Okay, I would be
Gotta be.
absolutely floored if he
Yeah.
is still around after, inevitably this team does not make the playoffs.
Right.
After all these years and you miss out, you don't win a playoff game, and this is where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
He gets canned. Don't be surprised if James Click takes over. And if you're going to make a move or sign somebody, that's the guy to do it. That's just kind of the way I see this whole thing playing out. Vladdy's always said from day one that he wants to be here, whether that's just mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
Love him or not, it's
Right.
quite possible.
Right.
Bo Bichette, I mean, look, do you look at that 3-year deal that he signed as kind of like a positive? I mean, you can't
don't
look
know.
at it. It's
Right.
absolutely. He doesn't have to go see arbitration at all, right? And that's
Yeah.
definitely a positive sign with that. If you're going to trade either of them or both, which would be nuts, and I agree, I don't think they will. I truly don't think they will, and it's a lot to do with Mark Shapiro and the renovations. Like Rob said, you don't want it to be a ghost town where you're seeing IKF leading off because you have nobody else to play next year.
A genius segment preview, by the way.
There you go, buddy. There you go. And it's like, I can't fathom it happening. But I also don't want to go into the season with two massive players on an expiring contracts. So
with
if
an
you go
uncompetitive
one or the
roster
other-
or a roster that is fringe competitive.
Well, that's it. I mean,
Right.
let's be honest. We all knew going into the season this team was going to be worse offensively. We knew
Yeah.
it. We saw what happened. We saw what the offseason consisted of. And we're like, yeah, this is going to be pretty bad. And to this point, sure.
It's been worse. It's been worse.
It's been
worse than
and-
even my low expectations of
So
this team.
bad.
It's been worse.
And the scary part is that it's been worse with the fact that you've gotten a better Vlad and a better
Yeah.
Dalton Varsho. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, those are the two
A
positive
significantly
regression guys.
better Vlad and Varsho.
let's
A
be honest,
significantly
though.
better.
IKF's having a career freaking year, and we're talking about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like, holy
yeah.
crap. So if we're going into next year hoping for more positive regression from guys like George Springer and age like 36 or whatever the hell he's going to be next year, it's just not going to happen. That's why I think the first move to make is a guy like Ross, but I just don't think it's going to happen during the season. I wish it would, because I'd rather the guy making trades at the deadline be a guy that actually gives a crap about the future of the team, whether a guy that's like 1 foot out the door already.
Yeah.
And just to piggy that off what you just said, Price.
Yeah.
My whole spiel earlier about how moving Turner and Kevin Kiermaier to create roster spots. A guy like Ross Atkins, he doesn't care about that. Why would he care about what Aurelvis Martinez has to bring for the 2025 team? Like, he doesn't care. He's not going to be here. He's not going to go into Rogers' the big guy's office and be like, "Hey, buddy, can you write off $20 million in contracts I gave out because it was a bad choice?" Like, he's not going to do that. For a guy whose job security is paper thin, which we all think it is at this moment, like he's not going to do that. And that's what's unfortunate, because I really do think the best course of action is to just give those guys looks and see which one of them is going to give you anything in 2025. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Yep, I agree. There's a few things I want to mention. I'm just going to throw to their bullet points. From April 23rd to May 23rd, also credit to at the letters for this. We had the fourth worst run differential in baseball in that month span. That was between the two times where we won a series. For anybody that was wondering why I chose that sample, it's the last time we won the series, the last time we won the series, and then the time before that we won a series. So before the Tiger series, we also had the third worst winning percentage in baseball during that span. Another bullet point.
We didn't win a series.
Yeah, and then another bullet point that I want to bring up: between Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, and George Springer, they have 13 home runs. On pace for roughly 40 to end the year, when 40 is what you needed out of probably one of those guys being Vlad. You needed 40 out of him.
Vlad would be the guy.
You said 13 with those three guys combined. Dalton Varsho's got 10.
10. He's got 10. Dalton Varsho actually has as many home runs as the guy who is in second and third on our team in home runs combined, which is Davis Schneider and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who both have 5.
So not to mention that Dalton Varsho's the 10th home run yesterday has now moved him past Gabriel Moreno on his all-time home runs that he said he has 9 in his career. Just putting it out there.
And then my final thing is just something I was looking at. I meant to bring it up during the Tigers series because Jordan Romano blew an outing, and I come on here all the time. I talk about nothing clean, whatever, and you know, partially a joke.
You're right in safe situations. You are right about that.
He's a great reliever. He's had 2 clean outings this year. 3 clean innings.
Yeah.
He has been, and now, unlike previous years where I'm saying these things and the numbers
have actually been bad.
You look at the numbers and you're like, well, how is that possible, Cole? He has a 105 whip. This year, he has a 1.5 whip and an over 6 ERA. So he's actually been bad this year, so it's not as crazy for me to say these things, but yeah, he's not been good.
No, and everybody you relied on in the bullpen last season, I mean, it's been a complete reverse. Like, obviously, Jordan Romano being one.
Yeah. And then
Swanson.
Jimmy, the other
one. 9th inning guys.
All City. Like, I don't know what we're doing here with that. Genesis Cabrera is, like, just slinging the ball and has no clue where it's going. Tim Meza, I mean, yes, Rob, I mean, you guys not a fan. I get it. Hold on a minute. All the favorable situations he was in last season, so it made the numbers look quite sexy. And now he's like, "Oh, we kind of need you in like multiple different
actual situations."
Yeah, and he poops down his leg, and his numbers are really bad.
Yeah.
Now Jimmy Garcia's on the other side of that, where he was like, last year, now he's like elite, other than one outing. So it's like the bullpen's just a complete mess. And Chad Green was back today, so that was, I guess, a positive sign. But
but there was literally only one guy. There was one guy in our bullpen that had an extensive track record year in and year out of being a very good elite reliever. Whether it's closer, whether you want to argue the closer, he's been an elite reliever, and that was Jordan Romano, and he's off to the worst start of his career.
Yeah. No, and that's a big reason why the Blue Jays bullpen is as bad as it is. I think Keegan mentioned it on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. 28th.
That's not
I think that they're 28th in bullpen ERA with an ERA over 5, and like obviously the Fangraphs were like a couple pods ago when we did it. Like I checked and it was factually they were 30th in baseball. They were the worst bullpen in baseball.
Worst bullpen in baseball. Wow.
I can't imagine they're much better now.
Right.
And Rob, guess what? That 5 ERA was with Jimmy Garcia's under 1.
Right.
Like you take that away or put him at
that was before they allowed 9 runs yesterday, right?
Yeah. So, God, take away Jimmy's ERA or even put it at like 4.5 or hell, screw it. Give him some credit. 3.5, and it's like it's still.
Yeah, and here's one thing that I do want to say this, and I feel like there's a misconception. I think even on our show, I can't remember, we mentioned that the Blue Jays, they built a bullpen like a patch and go bullpen.
Right, I
I would
said that. Yeah,
actually,
Yeah.
you said that, okay. I would actually reject that premise. I mean, first of all, you look around baseball. Look at the Dodgers bullpen. Do me a favor. Look at the Dodgers bullpen right now. All their bullpen guys, they're either homegrown guys who they brought up, or guys who like were veteran, like guys who were on the league journeymen that they
Mhm.
turned good. Evan Phillips, their closer, one of the best closers in baseball, was like the Dodgers were his fifth team in 4 years. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, he's now the best closer, like one of the best closers in baseball. Like the way the Blue Jays actually built their bullpen, Romano's the only guy. Everyone else, you gave Chad Green a multi-year deal in free agency. You gave Jimmy Garcia a multi-year deal in free agency. You traded an everyday player for Eric Swanson. Like the Jays, their pen is not, they're not supposed to be a patch and go pen. They gave in legitimate resources to build this bullpen. It's still producing these results. It just speaks to how bad they've been at developing guys. And that's why I'm actually excited for Zach Pop, because he's one of the few guys who you actually should build like this. You know, a buy low guy that you can turn with good stuff into like a legitimate guy. And like they've given up significant asset capital for this bullpen. It's still giving them awful results. That's the scary part.
yeah, yeah. And my final note off the bullet points was fifth lowest runs via the home run percentage in baseball. The Tigers had the worst going into that series. Going into the Tigers series, they were the worst team.
Yesterday.
The worst team grabbing runs via the home run, and they took 3 of 4 against us. 3 of 4 against
home
our
runs
pitching
yesterday.
staff.
Three in a row.
4 home runs
Well,
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 in a row. Okay, we're moving on to more positive things. Alek fucking Manoah. What the heck? What the? I'll fully admit it. I'll be the first to admit it. I was wrong. I was fully wrong. Yes, I didn't think he was going to. Yes, I did technically say I didn't want him to start the game that he started, and he was terrible in that game. So, by proxy, I was kind of right. I was not expecting 22 innings of Alek Manoah being a sub-4 ERA and a 105 whip. That is absurd to talk about with Alek Manoah right now. James.
Oh, look, other than I think it was his last start was a little bit shaky. 4 2/3, 5 hit, 6 runs, 4 earned, allowed 2 bombs, walked a couple, hit a guy with the base.
Some bad defense behind him.
Sure, yeah, and he also didn't help himself very much.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah, those starts against the Rays and Minnie. I mean, he was elite. I mean, you look at that Rays game, 7 innings of 1 hit ball and had 7 punch outs, walked one guy. I mean, he was absolutely elite in that start. And look, I want to see it for a prolonged time. And I mentioned it. I can't remember what it was on. I think it was on the last show that I did. I think it was Zach and might have asked it for me. And it was like, what do you need to see from Alek Manoah to know that he's fully back? And for me, it was when he doesn't have his best stuff,
Right.
how does he go about the outing? And because we know right back from 2022, Manoah and stuff like that, when he didn't have his stuff, he grind.
Right.
He was able to grind through outings, go 5 innings, a 2-run ball, pitch got up over 100, but he fought his way through a good, solid outing.
So we haven't seen that yet.
That's the point I'm trying to get. Right.
Yeah.
His last outing wasn't great. So I'm not fully back on it, but you can tell when he's got that slider working, when he's locating. That's the big thing. When he's locating, right? He's a different pitcher.
Yeah,
And
but I didn't think we were going to get this. Like, regardless of
No.
what I need to see if Alek Manoah is back to being a top 4 level starter in a rotation.
Yeah.
I think I'm there. To be honest, 22 innings in of this Alek Manoah, I wasn't expecting anything close to this. I think a 1 whip, given the fact that he's had multiple bad outings in that 22 innings, and he still has produced a 106 whip. For me, that is enough for me to go. He's gonna be in the rotation for the remainder of this year, and I'm fine with it. I'm fine with him being every 5 days for the rest of 2024.
Right.
Yeah,
I think at this point with the team, if they're not competing and they're not contending, I think why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I still. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Sorry. No, there was not a backhanded compliment from me for Alek Manoah. I'm saying legitimately for a contending team.
Yeah.
I am okay with him being a starter every 5 days.
Sure.
Rob.
And especially because like this team just flat out needs it. I mean, we've talked about how awful they've been at developing pitching. You just cannot afford the one guy who you managed to get something out of to just flounder like this. That's what made last season so disappointing. That he was so ineffective because this team just needed some proof of concept that they can homegrown a guy and turn him into a legitimate guy. And I think Alek Manoah at the very least is a guy again. Maybe we're still maybe a far cry
Right.
away. I mean, those 2 starts helped, but like from a legitimate Cy Young candidate, a legitimate front level starter, an ace caliber pitcher, maybe we're still a little ways away from that. But at this point, like after that Tiger start, you were disappointed. You were hoping, you were expecting him to have a better start, and that's what we've gone to. We've gone to expect a good outing out of Alek Manoah. He's starting in 2 days against the White Sox. I expect him to do well against that lineup. It's just how it is now. Like I think we've seen enough, like you mentioned, Cole, that you can expect him to be at the very least a major league caliber fifth starter, which is all he has to do on this team. That's
Right.
all he has to do on this team. That's all we said. You don't have to be the Alek Manoah of 2022. Can you just be a competent starter? And I think in terms of like actual materially from what we've seen on the field, the slider looks legit.
Yeah.
And he's gotten a ton of swing and miss on that slider, and the changeup wasn't really working his last start. But for a guy who, the fastball, he looks like a big guy on the mound who throws hard, but his fastball is only like 94. You know what I mean? So for a guy who doesn't exactly throw upper 90s, you need a nasty slider. And we know Alek Manoah has a nasty slider. It wasn't that last season, and that's what made it so that's what made him so ineffective. But it's looked legitimately good this season so far. Even in his last start, I thought that he had some nice ones. He got some swings on it. So yeah, no, I think at the very least, Alek Manoah is a guy again, which is huge.
The last thing I wanted to jump on was that the big thing for me is the 2 seam. If he's fine in the zone with that thing, everything else plays. Yeah. They have to stay honest to that 2 seam movement, and it opens up everything. It really does. So obviously he didn't have that in his last start, and you see how it went. So I'm with you, Rob. I'm not asking him to be 2022 Alek Manoah.
Right.
I just want him to be confident and not kill us every night like he did in his starts last season.
Right. And maybe
at the same
there's a world.
If he wants to be 2022 Manoah,
maybe there's a world where we get to July and he's also on the trade block. But I'm not going to get into that today. Home run jacket came back. And I don't really know how I feel about it, to be honest. I think it's kind of embarrassing. I think it's a slight, if I'm going to bring up the Raptors in this situation, I think it's a slight comparison to a pizza party. You win 3 games in a row, we get a pizza party. I think it's a bit of that. You have the worst offense, one of the worst offenses in baseball, at least when it matters. And bringing the home run jacket back after you had a significantly better offense when this thing was removed from the equation, I found it a bit embarrassing. It's almost like admitting that you have an issue, but you don't want to really talk about it. So you're just kind of like, hey, we're sneaking this back in. Fun, let's go. I didn't really like it, to be honest. I like that it's back. I should say I like that it's back, but I find it an embarrassing move.
Hang on, I think you may have misspoke. Otherwise, I think both me and James just reject the premise. They were better without the home run jacket offensively. That's what you're saying?
No, I said they were better when they got it removed. When they removed the home run jacket from the equation, like when they were like, no more home run jacket, no more fun. They were better offensively than they are this year.
I mean, they brought it back this season. They hope to change the vibes, and I think since they've brought it back, the offense, albeit you're playing these types of teams, overall it's been pretty good from what I can remember. I don't know exactly the date, or I can't remember which exact game that they brought it back, but they've scored.
They also brought it back. They brought it back during the Tiger series, right?
No, I think it was before that. Maybe it's the opener when they won 9-1. I don't know. I can't remember.
It was the White Sox series. It was when Bo went deep center off Nastrini again. Like it was last week.
That was the finale. So that was right. So that was the finale on Wednesday where they won 9-2, then followed up with 9-1. And I was like,
and then they lost 3 to the Tigers.
Sure, they didn't score runs.
And they scored 1 run, and they scored 1 run in the game right after that.
Yeah, but then they scored 11 on Sunday and then 5 more today. So
but again, I'm not saying that they haven't been better with it. I simply was just saying that for a team that has been that bad offensively,
I'm okay with it. The whole being all serious ploy, it hasn't worked. Okay, it hasn't worked for a year and a bit now. If you want to keep Vladdy around, if anything, positive vibes, make him feel comfortable. I don't freaking know, but he wanted it back from the start, and you got it back, and.
I know. I just think it's a bit embarrassing. I think if you're going to bring back a home run celebration that's fun for the fans, don't bring back one that you executed when you had no reason to execute it back then.
They're doing it for Vlad. Let's be honest here. They're doing it for Vlad. I mean,
he loves the home run jacket.
He's the only one that wanted it back. Bo's the guy's like, I don't really give a crap if it comes back or not. Vladdy wants it back. If you want Vladdy to sign, I don't know if it's some sort of like ploy to help that or if anything. Yeah.
But you know what? If that's what it came down to, if it was Vlad wanting it, then fine. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
That's kind of the vibe I got from it.
I mean, like my opinion is that like the Tigers do the pizza pocket thing, the Mariners do that. What was that thing called? The staff, whatever it's called. The trident. Yeah. the Orioles, they drink the water from the beer
Yeah.
bong.
No,
That's
everybody's got one. Everybody's got
No, my
one.
point is
What I'm
everyone's
saying-
got one. So like,
No, but
you know,
I'm not upset at a home run
Yeah.
celebration. I'm upset that they brought back one that they got rid of. If you need a home run celebration to bring some fun back into your dugout, great. Find a new one, because bringing back the old one just looks bad in terms of for me optically.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't really have thoughts that extend that deep. Honestly, I kind of like it. I like having fun. I like having fun.
No,
And
yeah,
that's
so do
why
I.
this team was not having fun.
Yeah,
It
so do
also
I.
brings us back
yeah.
to more fun teams to watch. And
Yeah.
2022 was much more fun.
Yeah. No, I'm all for fun.
I think just about every Blue Jays team has been much more fun than this one. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Mhm.
Sticking with fun, the City Connect jerseys, entire city jerseys and the hat have been reportedly leaked. And let's just
Not
say,
confirmed yet. Not confirmed yet. We gotta
not
put that out
confirmed
there.
yet. In fact, 3 days from now, it'll be confirmed.
Yes.
Underwhelming, to say the least, is kind of the vibe I've gathered from Blue Jays fans.
Yeah, so I actually did the post game show today on Blue Jays Center. Check that out if you guys haven't already. I was actually asked by one of the fans in the comments my thoughts on the City Connect jerseys, and I said, I admit it firsthand. I think you guys know I'm not the biggest jersey buff, but yeah, I was underwhelmed. I thought that all it really was, if you just look at it, is the regular road Toronto jerseys, darker tone in the background, and then just the Toronto skyline with a silhouette over it. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel like a whole lot. You know what I mean? And I get, like, look, you think of the like the Tigers jerseys, they had the Motor City on them. I think
I didn't like those
Chicago
either.
today is Southside. I mean, I don't like the design, but I feel like I enjoy the unique slogan. You know what I mean? Like something about the
Right.
six, where it's like it's just Toronto. It's just like it's a regular jersey, just darker with a silhouette skyline. It's not really that creative. In my
The best thing I did like about it is I wanted them to go back to black. So I like that they brought the black back, but everything else about it I didn't really like. I like the skyline. I knew it was going to be involved somehow, but I agree with you. Like, had they have simply just changed Toronto to the 6, I think people would be a lot more happy with it. James.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to show. Screw it. I'll show it on here. I got it open, and it's like that is
There you go.
jersey,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Looks like some dude,
okay.
It looks like some dude made it in paint. I'm sorry. It's make it Toronto. Here's a CN Tower that my son, my son drew at 6 years old, and it's making it look a little bit blurry. A bunch of buildings. I don't know, guys. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, it does feel like something like we could have came up with.
Sure.
If we gave it a week, you know what I mean? Like Blue Jay Center could have done that in a week, and people would have been happy about it. It would be like, whatever. That's a fine idea.
And I just, I don't know. I was hoping
since I'll give our guy Smitty a little more credit than that.
True.
I don't know. I thought because we're one of the last teams to do this thing.
Yeah.
And you'd think they'd have some crazy thing made up. It took forever to do it. Here's some crazy design that you're gonna love, and if that's what we get, I mean,
yeah. But there's also kind of no reason to expect that we aren't gonna get it. You know what I mean? It's pretty. It's a weird thing to be conveniently leaked on the week of City Connect, and then for Friday to roll around or whatever day it is.
Maybe just us holding out false hope that it's not the ones. Maybe just some false hope
exactly.
in the back of our mind.
Exactly. Or like they managed to get it done completely differently between now and then. They're like, okay, people don't like this. We gotta. Maybe they leaked it. Maybe they leaked it in hopes that they could.
You gotta pulse the fans and see how much they like it. That's smart.
They scramble within a week to try and make a new one. It's like, oh boy.
Well, here's the thing. You do that, all of a sudden now all the expectations are guns, floor low. Think about all the hype that they built up around the jerseys, and we see that we're all underwhelmed. And now, hold on a second, we're gonna tweak it, even if it's a little tweak. We'll be pleasantly surprised at that point. Right.
Like we said, maybe they listen to this podcast because that's what they would do, and they just changed Toronto to the 6, and then everyone's happy.
Absolutely. Hey, you heard that, everyone?
Yeah.
Free tips out there.
Yep.
Sick podcast, Blue Jay Center podcast.
Exactly. Exactly. Moving back to baseball, on the farm, James.
Oh yeah. Let's get after it. All right. Well, since we're in a swimmingly positive mood today, let's just.
We are right now.
Sarcasm at its
kind of.
I don't know. That City Connect.
Yeah, exactly.
Positive about that. But I'll stick in the negatives for a minute, and then we'll end off with the positives. So the trending down part, there's 3 guys, 2 of which aren't playing, one of which are Elvis Martinez. I mean, everyone's been clamoring about him come at the big leagues, including all of us on here, right? We've all wondered, we want to see Elvis, we want to see him. Over his last 10 games, he's hitting a $1.08 with a 190 OBP in his last 10. He got a couple home runs, but it's been a tough one for Elvis over the last 10.
Ross Atkins, sorry, I'm going to bring this back
go for it.
to a reason why he's not in the big league clubs. We've spoken about it before. It's his defense. But Ross Atkins actually spoke about it in that fucking meaningless press conference he had a week ago. He said, like, yeah, the only thing keeping Martinez up from being in the big leagues is him being an average defender, which is implying that the metrics suggest he's not even average. They want, and they don't want him an average defender, period. They want him an average defender at second base. If he can become an average defender at second base, in all likelihood, he's up with the big league club. But the issue is that he's not that right now. So for everybody that wonders why this offensive talent isn't with the big league club, it's because there's a lot of issues defensively.
Yeah, and those numbers were off of his 10 games. If you want to go even farther, his last 30 games, hitting 204 with a 307 OBP. I mean, it's just not good enough. If you're doing that over a month span in AAA, and plus if your defense is as poor as it may seem, it's not good, and you're not going to get the call. So here we are, Jays fans. More Kevin Biggio, more Daniel Vogelback, and more Ernie Clement for all your enjoyment. All right. The two guys I mentioned that were not playing, Arjun Namala, because I've been trying to keep an eye on him, and I haven't seen that he's played a game. And I'm like, okay, well, May 12th was his last game, and that's been now we're nearing 2 weeks on that. Actually, we're over 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
And I'm like, okay, well, I got to look into this a little bit more. All I could get was that he's on the development list. That's all I got. Whether that means they're doing the whole, have the pitchers, a bunch of innings they've pitched, sit down, rest them for a bit longer. They don't want to go over a certain amount of innings. Are they doing that with Namala in his first year in minor league? Maybe. I don't know. That's all I got from that. And obviously no update on rookie Tiedemann. So great.
That's rough.
So that was our three prospects. They're top three in the trending down because two guys aren't playing and one guy can't hit anything and play defense at all.
Right.
So on the trending up part, it's because there are some actually. Alan Roden is a guy that I've been trying to keep an eye on. He had a really good start to the year, had a pretty painful start to May, but boy, over his last 10, he is on fuego, hitting 389 with a 488 on base. He's got 7 walks in his last 10 games. He's only struck out 3 times in his last 10 games. So he's been electric for AA. And that AA team has some really good-looking young players. Obviously, Josh Kasevich being another one of them. He's hitting over his last 10. He's hitting 311 with a 354 on base again. Doesn't walk, but gets a ton of hits. And over the course of the season, he's hitting 325 with a 377 on base, a 791 OPS. Again, no power, but he's got 14 walks to 20 strikeouts in 40 games. So he's been great down in AA. So those two guys in particular are guys that if these AAA guys get a chance at the big league level, those are a couple guys that could maybe eventually get that call to AAA and take that next step forward. On the pitching side of things, Adam Macko. Obviously, we talked about Eric Swanson in the trade for Teoscar Hernandez and how it's miserable. He might be the best part of the damn trade, guys. I mean, I think that he's still a young guy. He's 20? Let me try and pull that up here. 23, isn't he? 23, lefty. Right, he figured things out at the middle point of last season, and his last 2 outings, he's gone 11 innings, allowed 6 hits, 2 earned runs, walked 3, and struck out 15. He has been electric again at AA. So that's kind of like that next wave of possibilities. That's really all prospects are, but they're doing some great things. And the last guy I got in the trending up is Tucker Toman, who's a guy who's been having 77th overall pick back in 2022. He's still only 20. But he's tapped into the power a little bit more at the A-ball level. It's still a long way to go. But over his last 10, hitting 293 with a 370 on base with a couple home runs as well. So positive signs there, I guess. But I mean, when your top prospects are not doing great, actually your top 4, screw this. 3 of your top 4 aren't playing, and one of which has been no good over the last month.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. I'm trying to grab at straws for positive, even though it's been kind of miserable.
I do have one thought, and obviously we mentioned the Martinez, the defense obviously being his major impediment, but are you kind of worried that maybe you see a guy who's hit as well as he has? I mean, I'm not sure where he stands now, but I think he was tops amongst the whole international league, which is where Buffalo Bisons play, and AAA. He's leading them in home runs. He's had this crazy OPS at the start of the season. Do you feel like there's any element of, hey, I've done all I can and there's still no reward to the big leagues coming? You think that maybe that's That could
I mean,
have.
he shouldn't be. He's only 22 years old. He
Yeah,
should be already
and
at the big
you're
league
not
level.
that you're just not in that position. Like you
No.
don't have that luxury.
No.
If you want to be in the big leagues, you can't be like that. So
A prime example is look at a guy like Spencer Horwitz. I mean, he should be
Yeah.
up in the big league level, and he continues to rate.
He's a big league player right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. He should be here over quite a few of these guys. But
yeah,
due to roster stuff, it's not
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Name any names?
Well, I've already mentioned them a little bit earlier, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it again.
Son of a Hall of Famer. Anyways, continue, Professor.
Yeah, Craig Bichette. For anybody that missed that one, I do want to say this. Like, this is the first time in a long time that I've spending this close attention to the minor league system.
Yeah.
And given all the narratives that we heard coming into the year of it being, not that good, it seems like there's been quite a few good things happening in the minors this year. So I'm very curious to, if this continues or if it even stands par or whatever to the end of the year. I'm curious where then the system would rank because, like, if they all have a relatively good year for their standards, that has to mean that we take a pretty large jump in the prospect ranking. So I that's the one thing I'm looking forward to is hopefully all of these raw numbers that we're looking at actually matter, like when it comes to prospect rankings and trade value and all that. So I think that is positive. That was my only note.
It definitely is. It just also doesn't help when it comes to prospect rankings, and your top 5 guys have not been good or not playing at all. And Barrier obviously had Tommy John, so he's done for a year and a bit now.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, look, past the top 5, there's some good ones. Like obviously Addison Barger's 6. My guy Emmanuel Bonilla has been struggling recently, but he's still a stud and Kendrys Rojas, this guy, man, I don't know what the hell's up with him. I'm just going to fire this in here, but he's only had 2 starts in the minor leagues this year. Dude's he has an absolute cannon. I mean, he is a lefty. He's a lefty starting pitcher, 21 years old. Was great last season. Where is it? Dunedin, 84 innings pitched. Actually, no, screw that. You know what? But he's been great. And I want to see the guy pitch. He's your 10th ranked prospect, and he hasn't pitched either since April. So it's like, holy crap, guys! Can we freaking stand the field?
Yeah. Okay, moving on to a Stat Genius section that apparently involves Isaiah Kiner.
Let's see.
Glad you are right. It does involve Isaiah Kiner, who was on the heat map of many Blue Jays fans, including us on this podcast. The very first show, we all said we don't understand why Isaiah Kiner is on this roster, and rightfully so, because it didn't make sense on paper. You have a guy who's an awful big league hitter, despite the fact that he may be useful with the glove. He's had some good years, don't get me wrong, but for this team, knowing how badly they needed an offense, it just did not make sense. And to a degree, I understand that same thing does not completely go away. Oh,
love you, Rob. Okay, I mean,
that's what happens. That's what happens when you're going to start talking positive vibes about Isaiah Kiner through 50 games.
I mean, you're not that ugly, Rob. You can turn your mic camera back on.
There we go. Anyways, as I was saying, IKF so far looks like a good signing by Ross Atkins. We talked about Ross Atkins. You got to tip his cap. I'll read you guys the numbers right now. Both offensively and defensively. We mentioned how awful offensively. 81 career OPS plus coming into the year. 107 OPS plus before he ripped 106 mile per hour double today. Another extra base hit for him, by the way. Talk about have a road trip. 106 WRC plus on the Fangraph scale if you prefer that metric as well. And obviously we mentioned signed because of his defense. Well, defense has been A-okay in many different spots. Obviously, he's played all over the diamond, all 3 infield positions other than first base. Spent some time in the outfield as well. Positive DRS on every position. Obviously, sample size varies. Still we're not even 60 games in, so take that as you may. But yeah, it's positive all across the board by like 2, 3 in just about every category. So yeah, I mean,
how many at bats? How many at bats does he have?
How many at bats total? Let's look it up.
Because
someone can probably look it up while I'm going off. But regardless of what I'm trying to say is that all of a sudden, 1.5 WAR on Baseball Reference, a 1 WAR player on Fangraphs, they've gotten so far a legitimate positive everyday player out of Isaiah Kiner. So you got to tip the cap there, both offensively and defensively. He's been a net positive contributor. And I think me and James, we mentioned this yesterday at Comerica when he hit the home run. It's like, is it crazy to say that IKF's like your top 5 guys if you have confidence at the plate, which is insane. And it's, by the way, that's not all
That's
of
not
that
us saying
much of
it.
a hype
Yeah,
for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. It's more of an indictment on the
right.
rest of the team. But still, like, I mean, I got to be honest. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has definitely he's more than held his own. You got to give him credit. We didn't like the signing at the time. The thinking, I still think the thinking was bad. Our process was bad, but he's been good. He's been good. You got to give him. You got to tip the cap.
Yeah.
As John Schneider would say.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that good one. Good one. I like that. So how many at bats did you have? Do we know? James, did you get it?
Well, I mean, he's had a lot, especially recently.
I know.
Let me just
I know, but there is a number. I'm looking for a number.
Hold on, ABs. We got IKF going into play today.
Yeah.
With a total of 148 at bats.
Wow. Yeah. No, that does it. That does it for me. That does it for me. That's a good signing. That's ridiculous. I did not think that was
277, 321 on base. I mean, good lord, guys.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
a 107 OPS plus. He's legitimately been an above average big league hitter. It's a fact.
And also, he does. I know it doesn't mean a whole lot, but he doesn't strike out at all. 51 games, he's 25 Ks. He doesn't.
And to me, that does matter. If you are at least putting the ball in play for something to happen, I will take that over a guy who. Okay, this is a bad example, but if you can get an Isaiah Kiner-Falefa version, yes, Kevin Bichette would be a good one because all he does is either walk or strike out.
To get walk and strike out by hoping to get walk and watching a pitch.
But even
right in the middle, love it, guys.
Exactly, yeah. To an even larger extent,
he hit a home run yesterday. Shout out to Kevin. He hit a home run yesterday. Good for him.
Yeah,
good for him. Yeah, yeah. If you can get that, then I'm satisfied. So if you don't go up there and I think that you're an automatic out, then you know what, I'm happy because for Kevin Bichette, despite whatever his OBP number will ever be in his career, I will always think that he's an automatic out at the bottom of the order. So, except for the odd time he runs to the home run, but yeah. So we usually finish off the show with previewing the next series. For a couple of reasons that I'm not going to do that today is one, we're in the middle of the series. We had the first game today against the White Sox. So whatever, there's that. Here's my other thing. We talked about it earlier in the show, but I'm going to make it crystal clear. There is no preview. It does not matter what I come to you with our matchups, with how our staff does against their team and their ballpark, how their staff does against us and our hitters, and you know, a good matchup for George Springer. Maybe it's trending upwards. Maybe there's something come. No, none of that matters anymore. There have been career lows on this team. Bo Bichette and George Springer at the top of that list. Justin Turner has simply went from what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is right now to being one of our worst hitters offensively. All in the span of 50 games.
Percentile in bat speed. First percentile in bat speed. I mean, that's a clear cut evidence that he's not. This is not a slump. He's washed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So my point is that no history can suggest what is going to happen with this team in the future because of how unprecedented this season currently has gone for this core. There's nothing to suggest that, there's nothing that will tell you anything or be able to predict anything that's going to come forward. So that's why I'm not going to do a preview today. And maybe we don't do a whole lot more previews going forward. Maybe we focus on the pitching stuff, whatever. Maybe. But today we're definitely not going to do it because this team has 12 games, like we mentioned, to figure it the fuck out. If you do not have a 9-3 record after those 12 games, you're likely out of it. You're done. Season's cooked. It's
mathematically.
June. Not mathematically, but as close to mathematically as you can get without being mathematically eliminated.
Sure.
The stretch you got coming up after that. Whew.
Yeah, because I'm
already there.
Yeah, and we're us three are already basically there. So if you have anything worse than 9-3, yeah, we've walked the plank. We're drowning in the middle of the ocean. So this team has no reason for us to do a preview on these next series. You need to win them, and you should win them. Baltimore's the only thing you have an excuse to go a split in. So you do that, and maybe you can change the tide on us. Come 12 games from now. But yeah, so that's why I'm not going to do a preview today. I'm hoping that my two co-hosts are okay with that.
Yeah, I'm good. I'd rather not preview the Jays facing Mike Clevenger tomorrow, and then in the finale of the series, who you could possibly sweep. Who do we got to face? Oh, yeah, Mariners legend Chris Flexen. Like, I'm good. Man. Okay.
So
You
good.
should do it, but I'm good.
Good.
Let's hope he won't be flexing on the Blue Jays. Am I right,
Oh
guys?
God! Yeah, see
All
now,
right.
now we are cooked.
Okay.
Now we are cooked.
Oh, boy.
Another great episode on the Blue Jays Center podcast presented by the Sick Podcast Network. It was a big one, but I was back, so you knew there was going to be some rambling involved. James Price, Rob Penn, Talaman. Let's go Blue Jays.
Cheers, everyone.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.